Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Maybe I should say good evening. I know, or a few minutes late, but that's all right because life happens. Computers break and people take extra time, but that's all right. Uh, Welcome, Steve. It's so good to catch up with you. How you been, buddy?
Tim, how have you been? I've been seeing you all over the place on social, and just love what you're doing over there at Compliance Scorecard. I think the world of that product, it's amazing.
Oh, well, thanks for that shameless plug or helpful plug. But yeah, life is life, right? Kind of work through stuff, do the stuff. Just got back from Kaseya. So Kaseya Connect, it was our first ever Kaseya conference. So, pretty excited about that. It's a different ecosystem, one we've never really been involved with before. Are you at all familiar with that ecosystem?
I've been a Kaseya customer before. I'm not currently a Kaseya customer. We tend to just refer to them as Big K around here.
Okay.
Big K. But yeah, I am familiar a little bit with some of their products. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it was actually apparently. I know you mentioned the social media thing, right? We've never really. Oh, hold on. What's going on? Extra background now. My goodness, I just got crap popping up all over the place. Apparently, when we were there, and I didn't realize this, we won their social media award. Who knew? And it actually came with a little bit of cash that we could then spend on a table. And I was like, wait, no, it's actually going to pay for dinner because, dinners aren't cheap in Vegas. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting ecosystem trying to learn and, kind of working through and meeting a whole different group of people that I've never met before. So just love to get to know the community more. So, but anyways, you've got some cool stuff going on with MSP School. Why don't you pop up here on screen and tell us a little bit about MSP School?
So, one of the things I'm an MSP owner. I've been an MSP owner for 18 years, and I've been a member of probably 5 or 6 different guru programs or what have you. And one of the things that I just wanted to build was a place that MSP owners could come to, maybe without the guru talk, and we could collaborate and we could build a community, something special. And we could build that in such a way that we did not have to have someone who just knew it all, and maybe in some cases said they knew it all, and then when you tried what they said, it never worked. And instead, look at things like building brand and how do you do that, or financials. How do you truly manage through MSP financials, or and manage the business with your books in mind, or what is your direct primary aim? Why do you want to look at things like that? So we built a community on the school.com platform, and I'm not very creative, so I called it MSP School, and so the name kind of stuck. A lot of people liked it, and so here we are. Yeah,
I love that. And you spell school the same way I do. And I spell cool Kewl. So yeah, that's just what I've always done. So I love it. It's great. And so, excited to learn a little bit more about that.
You're an 80s kid, just like me, right?
Yeah, highly dyslexic. I can't even say the word. But yeah, today we're going to get into like the work you think is getting done, but it probably isn't. And before we kind of dive deeper into this topic here in a minute, I suppose I should come up and say hello as well. So, hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to MSPThoughtLeadership.com. I hate to say sponsored by, because we're kind of one and the same. Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard, where we help your MSP have that risk conversation with your customer. Okay, I got that out of the way. Phew. So, when we were bouncing ideas back and forth about, hey, we want to get together and chat about some stuff and maybe offer some advice to some MSPs, we kind of landed on this. You think shit's getting done, but it actually ain't. And, we kind of talked a little bit about like maybe your client, or your prospect or whatever, they're expecting this or they just do it. Like, really? Like, is that in your MSA? No. Like, that gap between assumed work and actual execution.
I think that that's a really huge topic, and it's really an underserved topic in a lot of MSP circles. And here's the reason why. I've talked to that MSP owner, hell, I've been that MSP owner a time or two, that has said,
Guilty.
I have to do it all because I can't find a tech to do it, or I can't find the marketing person to do it, or I can't find the salesperson to do it. And I've lived that. Like, that's lived experience for me. I can't find this thing. And I finally realized it wasn't that I couldn't find it, it's that I wasn't prepared for it. And, so then I had to think, okay, well, how do I prepare to bring this, to bring this person on board and set them up for success? And make sure that the thing that I'm trying to solve for is actually solved, right? And so that's the part that I think that is hugely overlooked in this topic. It's like, we were trying to solve a problem. Any hire that you make in your MSP, it should solve the problem. It shouldn't, whatever that problem is. And, that means getting work done. And that means being able to prove that work is getting done. And so, yeah.
I don't know. You just struck a chord with me. Prove, because, compliance, prove. I don't know. Maybe there's a correlation there of some sort, but you're right. Like, there's define what done is. It's funny that this is coming to mind because, we all play vibe code, write stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then it like AI and it thinks it's done. And I'm like, it ain't done. Like, no, iterate again. And so I actually literally in the last 2 or 3 days, I built what I call my done contract as a skill agent. And it ain't done until it hits all these 17,000 things, right? Because, I'm a compliance guy. Black and white, yes or no. Done means done. Doesn't mean half done. It means done.
It's either met or it's unmet. There is no in between. Right?
Yeah. It's, a little CMMC PTSD there. So, yeah. And again, that's an area I'm working on. I need to find the squishy gray in the middle. But I think, these are some common mistakes of like, oh, yeah, we either have it or don't have it documented, or we have it half-assed documented, or I didn't actually follow the documentation, right? And that's where this, this work, it like fails quietly.
I think that a lot of it, I love your idea of like, what is done? How do you define that? Because I think that's where a lot of us miss the boat. And it's not that done is like this finished state that we have in our minds sometimes. Done is a collection of sufficiency, to use the CMMC term, right? It's a collection of sufficiency. So in order to prove that it is done, I need to be sufficient in these areas. I need to do this thing to this level. And I'll give you an example. If you think about making a hamburger, right? Okay, I can get to the grill. I can go to the grill and I can slap the meat patty on the grill and I can leave it there for 30 seconds and take it off the grill. But then I have a super red pink center of ground meat, and that burger's probably not done. There's a sufficiency thing there.
To me, that's how I love my burgers. Still mooing, but okay, I get the analogy.
But that burger, it's people, that burger might not be done. So here's the question, right? To what sufficiency level do you want your burger cooked? You want it medium well? You want it medium? You want it bloody? Like, what is it, right? And we have to define that as business owners first.
Yeah.
We have to say, this is what I mean by done. So that when we hire that person to solve the problem, we form this contract between us. We say, look, this is what is done. This is what
Yep.
done means. And your thing is not done until it meets this sufficiency. And AI agents, great analogy. They work the same way, right? We create the agent's MD and we say, this is our acceptance criteria in the agent MD, and we lay it out. And this is what we mean by done. And it's not accepted as a PR and merged until it is done.
I literally just built 38 skills and 22 agents last night and this morning. I got tired of it being dumb and thinking its own version of sufficiency. And I'm like, that's not sufficient. No, I said X and you made it Y. Wrong. But it does, the point I want to kind of hone in a little bit on what you said is, as business owners, not just MSPs or compliance or whatever, but just as business owners in general, getting a common vernacular and a common understanding of what is sufficient. Now, in a risk management program, we have lots of standards and lots of compliance and lots of controls we can actually point to because people way smarter than I said, this is the definition of sufficient. There's a lot of nuance in the MSP space of what sufficient is considered. For example, how do you define if a document's done? How do you define if a task is done? How do you define if whether someone is doing something to some level of standardization, common vernacular, or in your case, sufficiency, right? I don't know. So in your MSP, what are some examples of sufficiency or done that you would consider?
So, in my MSP, in my practice, I think about positions. So a lot of MSPs struggle with sales and marketing. Like that's, I think Kaseya, to drop Big K's name again, they ran a study and it said like that is the number one thing for MSPs is sales and marketing and trying to figure out that thing. And so, okay, you need leads to have sales. But let's make that assumption that you need inputs to have outputs, right? So if you need leads to have sales, and you think, okay, well, where am I going to get my leads from? Then you have more questions. You have, okay, what is a qualified lead? A market qualified lead? What is a sales qualified lead, right? And then you have even subsets beyond that. Okay, so we have this idea of a sales qualified lead. So we go and we talk to our marketing person. We say, look, I need leads. Marketing's job is to get me leads. So now there's volumes of leads. Okay, I want 3 leads a week. That's what I want. I want 3 leads a week. I want one of those leads a week to be a sales qualified lead, meaning they have shown interest in our organization and they've done these things. They've jumped through these hoops. And so now you're putting walls around it. Now you're creating sufficiency for that position.
Okay.
And you're getting things that you can measure on a dashboard too. Did I get my 3 leads a week this week? No, I didn't. I only got 1 lead this week. Is the marketing person sufficient at delivering on the problem that I want them to solve? Right? And so you start by defining, and everyone's going to be different, but you start by defining for your organization, for the problem you want to solve, what are the metrics? And then once you have those metrics, you then say, okay, what is the quantity of those metrics that I want? And you've got to be, generally I start very conservatively. I'm like, I'm not going to go high. I'm not going to say I want 100 leads a week because chances are I'm probably not going to get that, even if I hired at the very top of the market, the best marketing person ever, So I start very conservative. I want 5. And then I will slowly turn that screwdriver. I'll slowly tighten that screw until I get to, I reach that point of resistance. I'll be, I can't do anymore. You've got to bring on 5 other marketing people to get what you want, right? And that's how I approach it. I look at what are my metrics. Then once I've identified the metrics that I need to measure to solve the problem, then I look at what are the numbers that I want, and I adopt very conservative numbers, and then we hold the people that we hire to solve the problem accountable to that, because they agree to it when they come on board, and we look at it, and that's how we do it.
And those are some really great analogies, right? We all know MSPs, and actually most businesses, for that matter, struggle with sales and marketing. Yep. Having some defined metrics, things that are measurable, and having outcomes. What all of that does is it removes assumptions. And It gets you closer to that done contract, right? Because, when I think about like either where work starts or where it happens or where it finishes, things like a meeting or a Teams or a Slack or a Jira ticket or whatever, outside of like the ability to actually have a formalized system in place that says tab A, slot B, move on.
Yeah.
And then being able to understand how that stuff works, and really around intent does not equal execution. Oh, I intended to do every single step of making dinner. Yes, I got the buns and the burgers and the hot dogs and the condiments and the whatever, but I only cooked the burger for a minute and a half. Okay, you got everything else. My intent was there, but I didn't meet sufficient burger cooking temperatures. Actually, for me, it would be, but for most people, it wouldn't be. But right, so intent doesn't necessarily and isn't provable on execution.
It's not, and so once you've got this, once you've kind of got this layout of, okay, I want these metrics and I want this this efficiency within the metrics. You can't just hire the person. You still can't just hire the person and expect them to solve the problem, right? Because you haven't built the systems within your business to support the person. So going back to that marketing analogy, do you have a CRM that's going to enable you to track these numbers? Because if you don't, then you're gonna then when you hire the person, you're gonna wonder why they're not doing the thing. Well, it's not the person's fault. It's the person doesn't have the toolbox to do the thing. No, you don't give them budget to run the ads or to write the letters or whatever it is to generate the leads. If you don't give them the budget, they can't do the thing. Right? How much budget? You've got to think about these things and put them in place. So you don't have email automation, or you don't have the ability to text, SMS and text. These are things that you need to put in place to be able to make sure that the person has the toolbox as well as the requirements to do the thing that you want them to do.
The toolbox, right, as you keep mentioning here, and we'll just keep going with the marketing analogy. The toolbox gives you visibility, and it gives you visibility into the activity, and the activity shifts from assumption to proof, right? And this is true. I mean, we're talking a lot about sales and marketing, but this is true for anything.
Yeah,
right. Like I sell donuts. Okay, well, I need to make sure I got milk and eggs and an oven, and the oven has gas, and I pay my gas, like, right. That toolbox, that thing, that quiver, the arrows in your quiver, that gives you the visibility. Like, hey, I'm going bow hunting. I got 17 arrows in my bow, good to go. Or I'm making donuts. I have milk, eggs, an oven, whatever. Like, that tool chest gives you the visibility.
Yeah, Gary Pica's chocolate cake.
Yeah. That visibility can turn in assumptions into proof. And then the proof leads right back to, hey, the burger is sufficiently done because I had a thermometer and I compared it to a standard, and it was cooked to 135 degrees perfectly, and it has the cheese melted on just the right spot. Well, you get it, right? That moves from assumption to proof. So I like to say, if you can't prove it, it didn't happen. We hear this all the time. If it's not in a ticket in the PSA, it didn't happen.
Well, if it's not documented, did it happen? Like if you hire a cold caller, or if you have an operations person, a tech that is supposed to work 10 tickets a day, and that you have no tracking on it, did it really happen?
Right.
You don't know.
And I think when all of this stuff around, you think work is getting done, but it isn't, right? Because there's gaps, there's holes, there's things in, what we have, and more importantly, haven't done. And the biggest thing of that is the assumptions, right? I go all the way back to the MSA. That is the governing document when I was an MSP working with an end customer. This is what we do, but more importantly, if it is not in that list, we don't touch it. We don't own it. And that is right in the very beginning of the sales conversation, all the way through execution. If it is not written down, it doesn't exist.
I think a lot of MSPs, they signed the MSA, and the thing that they're most concerned about is the expiration date and whatever the renewal terms are. And they take the MSA, and they take, their schedule one that shows what they're going to do, and they stick it in a drawer. They put it in a computer folder somewhere, and they don't think about it until that date is creeping up on them, right? But you're absolutely right. Like, the MSA is where the conversation starts. And that MSA should be understood by not only your sales team, but also your technical and operations team, so that they can deliver on what you promised. But it goes even beyond that, because you need to be able to measure that you're delivering the thing. And when you're able to measure that you're delivering the thing, it becomes so much easier? QBRs. Because then you can have that conversation and go, look, Mr. Customer, these are the things that you asked us to do.
Yeah.
And look at this. Here's our shiny report and proof that we're actually doing those things.
Yeah. And again, it all comes back to, if it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. And if you can't prove it, it didn't happen. Oh, wait,
that's
there's
my dashboards. Dashboards are so powerful, man, because you just having the tools there and being able to suck that data up into a dashboard, bring it full circle to your AI stuff, like that is incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly easy to do today. By even the most novice person who's using AI to start to code with, you can start to build these dashboards and have really powerful presentations.
Right. Well, dashboards actually, kind of segue into, like, they don't have a work problem. They have a visibility problem.
Yeah.
Right. Well, dashboards, gap analysis, QBRs, that's the gap here, is they have a visibility problem. So, not defining what good looks like, not being able to then have accountability on what is expected, and then not having visibility into any of that, right? It happens to me every single day. I'm like working with the developers, and I'm like, hey, XYZ, build 1, 2, 3. I gave you a specification. There's tickets in Confluence and Jira. And then I go look at what's built, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, I found a bug. And the ticket gets closed. I'm like, you didn't even comment on the ticket. You just closed it.
Yep.
So, right. So this is why, processes and things, like, you can have the best system in the world, but people need to be doing it, whether it's AI helping you along the way or it's actual humans doing the thing. Right.
One of the most embarrassing things, and I'll share a kind of an embarrassing story here. One of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to me in my MSP, it was probably about 8 years ago now. We had a client, and they were offboarding. They were leaving us. and they had given us a key to their facility. And we did have a process for handling keys and, access codes and things like that. We had a lockbox specifically for keys. And this goes right back to, is the thing getting done? Because it is as simple as a lockbox and keys, right? The policy was you take out the key, you sign your name on the register that I took out the key. You go and use the key, you come back, you put the key back in, and you write your time that you returned the key. That way we had a log of who last took the key. And,
heck, every fast food restaurant up and down the highway chain by the airport has a locked bathroom that you have to get the key for.
Exactly. And right? So the customer's offboarding, they're like, hey, we need our key back. Sure. So I go over to the lockbox and I open the lockbox and I'm like, okay, key should be here. Look, there's no key. Key's not there. And so we had to call in. We had like 3 technicians at that time in the business, and we had to call in all 3 technicians. And I don't know who took the key. I don't have the key. And you know where the key was? The key was in the cup holder under a cup in one of our work trucks. Yeah. And we, it's like, okay, go out to your trucks, clean them up until you find the key. The key's somewhere. And we found the key. But this is a perfect example, and it was so embarrassing for me, right? But it's a perfect example of you put the process in place, you think it's being done, but if you have no follow through, it turns into an ad hoc process, right? Because you don't have proof that it's being done, and no one's looking at that thing. So one of my favorite things after that to do was to say, if it isn't measured, if it doesn't measure, if you don't measure it, it gets worse. But everything measured improves. Everything that you measure improves. Right. And so and I started doing that religiously, and it took a while to get there, but everything that we measure gets better.
Interesting. I'm trying to think, there's a saying, I forget what it was. Only what gets measured gets accounted. I don't know. I forget what the hell it is, but it doesn't matter. So as we're kind of winding down here, Steve, I always like to leave our MSPs with something more, right? Something to take back, something to implement, something to think about. And kind of that, big key takeaway from, you think stuff's getting done, but it ain't. What about? So maybe you could take a second or two and give us your key takeaway.
My key takeaway for making sure that your stuff is getting done in your business, or for even starting to hire to solve those problems that your business currently has, is to first think about the sufficiency you want, the metrics you want, and then the tools that you're going to need to do those things to solve that problem. And then put all that together before you have your first application. Put it all together and then do it yourself. That's the final part of it. Do it yourself before you hire, and write down the way that you do it. And that way you have not only the process, you have the sufficiency, and you have the toolbox ready to go so that you can bring that person in and solve that problem.
I do love the do it yourself. It's kind of a mantra. Like, I would never ask somebody to do something I wouldn't do myself. Mm-hmm. That being said, I always ask my wife to do shit I'm not willing to do myself. Kidding. No, I'm not. But yes, but no. So, but yeah, I think that's a really good distinction, is like, have something, write it down, do the thing. And by the way, do it yourself at least once, so you know what the expectation is. And then, and I might take that a step further. I might include some kind of review of the thing or the expectation or the sufficiency on some kind of cadence, right? We call that our assessment cadence, but I would, like, I don't know, my backup and disaster recovery plan. I review it every quarter. I restore every quarter. Why? Because I want to make sure stuff's getting backed up and make sure it's working. Because you know how many times I've like looked at a backup log and it's failed for 7 months straight? Not good. So
that goes to the dashboarding conversation, right? Having that dashboard there and making sure it's updated periodically so that you know what the number is, right?
Right. So I think, as far as my key takeaway on, is work getting done, but it isn't, but it is, but it isn't, but we're not sure, somebody else's problem, not mine. I think it's really important to make sure that if it's not documented, it doesn't exist. Even though you can still be held accountable, assumptions tend to what kill work getting done, right? And unless there's some clear definitions, I'm not talking about, to the nth million degree of definitions, but enough so that anybody with a high school diploma or, fourth grade education can understand what done means. Write it down, put it together, define what done means so that there are no assumptions, there are no miscommunications, so that there's things in place that you actually understand and your team can understand. So in order to get shit done, write it down first and define what done means. That would be my kind of key takeaway for today is define done, write it down, you all agree on it, and then go get shit done.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely.
So, Steve, are we going to see you at any conferences coming up? You got any, give us one last sort of plug. Tell us, 2 minutes or less, MSP school, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so my team is looking at conferences right now to go to. So we haven't picked any just yet, but if you have some recommendations, get on MSP School and let us know what you think. And as for MSP School, it is a community for MSPs built on the school platform. We've right now got over 30 different lessons and trainings that you can take for free. And it's a no gurus community. You come in, you ask your question, and it's your peers answering. And we'd love to have you join us.
Awesome for that. Well, I don't know where we'll be next. Conference, all the things. I don't know. I'm head down in code right now because I was gone all last week and catching up. But Steve, always a pleasure to have you. Excited to kind of watch and see your school kind of grow. You know me well enough to know that my life mantra has always been for the last, decade or whatever, is to teach the next generation of MSPs. And so if I can help you over there at MSP School, throw some content, help you build a couple classes, whatever, I'd like to be here for you for a resource to be able to help, as I say, educate the next generation of MSPs. So happy to help
you up on that.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. We will see you in 2 weeks. I don't even know what the topic is because you know what? Krista probably wrote it down, but I didn't read it. But it's done. No, it's not done. So have a great week, everybody. We'll catch you back in 2 weeks. Or head on over to the MSP Thought Leadership. Do the like, the subscribe, the listen on the favorite podcast. All that stuff's there. Yeah, I'd love to have you around. If you are interested in being a guest, feel free to reach out. We'd love to have you. Steve, have a great rest of your week. Thanks.
Subscribe now.